sit back, relax, and smoke if you got 'em, because we're going to tackle some of the issues with Mutt in an attempt to make him a little less sucky to drive. In true built-bottom end fashion, he's got character, which in the gearhead community is a polite way of saying he's kind of a dumpster fire. In this video, I'll be tackling three main things. First, for some reason, he likes to eat wideband O2 sensors. I'm not sure what the cause is, as I've tried to be mindful of where and how I installed them in the exhaust. With such sensitive sensors, it's important to install them between roughly 9 and 3 o'clock so condensation buildup in the exhaust pipe doesn't collect on the sensor. It's also important to install it far enough back from the exhaust manifold or turbo to optimize the gas temperature when it hits the sensor. This distance will change depending on who you ask, but common consensus seems to be between 12 and 24 inches back, although there are plenty builds I've seen with them closer than that and they still seem to work out. So I'll be throwing another one at it and hope that this one lasts a little longer. What was that thing Einstein said about insanity? The next thing I'll be tackling is something that has been absolutely driving me nuts and I'm looking forward to having it fixed. Mutt has a 12-volt butterfly valve built into the exhaust that diverts the exhaust gas either through the stock muffler when closed or straight out of the cutout when in the open position. This is a nice feature to have when you live in a neighborhood and leave for work at the ass crack of dawn. Less chance of letters from Karen that way. And let's be honest, mechanical music is fun and all, but sometimes during those long cruises, the drone is enough to rattle anyone's brain loose, and it's a handy option to have. Recently, the 12-volt motor decided to pull a great escape and fell off while I was driving, got dragged behind the car for a good mile or so. Luckily, the wiring stayed intact just long enough for me to pull over and figure out why the car suddenly sounded like a blender full of bolts. It's got a few war wounds, but overall it looks like it should still work. I'd like to get this fixed because there's now nothing holding onto the butterfly valve and holding it either open or closed, and it rattles something fierce. Also, it randomly decides to get into some resonant frequency thing and it sounds like Dory trying to speak whale. I wasn't able to do much on the side of the road, so I had to yank what was left of the wiring loose, so I'll need to do a bit of a soldering repair job. Finally, the tablet you saw in the intro has a 3D printed base with a fixed USB-C connector integrated into the stock tombstone, which allows me to quickly connect and disconnect on the fly. Unfortunately, the headlight and hazard buttons protrude from the tombstone and get in the way of the tablet. To remedy this, I'm going to design and 3D print a spacer/bezel to recess the buttons back enough to clear the tablet. Right now the button assembly is just floating behind the tombstone, which is fine, but a little fit and finish would be a welcomed addition. I'll have timestamps for all three of these projects so you can skip through at your leisure. Before we get started, this video is brought to you by Built Bottom End Performance Parts and Tools. Elevate your endeavors with goodies from the ever-growing lineup on the web or on Amazon with the links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you can stay notified of future uploads and part launches. Also, down in the comments, let me know if you'd like to see a Jeff-style introduction to Mutt. I wrapped the downpipe with fiberglass header wrap and holy this stuff gets everywhere and it feels less than pleasant. Latex gloves help a little bit, but the fiberglass hairs still somehow end up all over my arms no matter how careful I am, so I've kind of given up. And a word to the wise, I found out the hard way, fabric gloves are a big no-no. When I built the turbo kit, the fiberglass strands got stuck in the fabric and positively destroyed my hands. Here's the USB cable going to the integrated connector built into the tombstone that I mentioned earlier. Here I'm doing the solder repair job on the 12-volt motor that fell off, and I'm just cutting back the frayed sections and stripping them back to some new fresh wire. And this is important in soldering, is to tin the fresh leads, which is just putting a small layer of solder down onto the bare wires. And then tinning the other side of the wires. And using heat shrink to try to minimize any corrosion on the fresh joints that I'm making. And my soldering tip is dirty, so you can see the solder kind of blobbing up and trying to follow the tip after I remove it. You don't want to see that, but it'll do the job. And this big section of heat shrink is going to act as a strain relief so that any forces are pulling on the cable and not the solder joints. And then I'm just putting a little bit of blue Loctite on the fasteners to prevent them from falling out again. that just about does it for this video. Thanks for watching, be kind, and remember, not everything's black and white.